Welcome back to the Backwards History Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Will, here with my co-host, Kevin. Say hi, Kevin.
Hi, Kevin.
Shut up, Kevin.
That never gets old.
Not for me.
I bet not.
Speaking of things that don't get old, this is going to be another episode of our Pagan Roots.
Yeah, I have really been eating these up lately. Appreciate it.
This is going to be the days of the week. Bet you didn't know that the days of the week and the names thereof
are all pagan.
All pagan. This surprised me a lot. Kevin already knew this, but I won't say I had no idea, but
right.
not nearly as much as it turns out. But before we get into that, I want to make sure you know we've got a Twitter page. You can find us at Backwards Histo. We got Facebook, the Backwards History Podcast, and you can email us at backwardshistorypodcast@gmail.com. And don't forget to go check out Mike Ramsey Music. He's the guy that makes our intro and outro music. Mm-hmm. But on that note, I'm going to let Kevin take over talking about Days of the Week.
For those of you who have been following along with our Pagan Roots series, big thank you for that. It is kind of a baby of mine, something I've really been having a lot of fun telling you guys about and love to get your feedback. But we've been covering holidays, big days of the year. So I thought we'd break it down to something that's where you see the pagan roots in your everyday life. Quite literally every day.
Every day.
Now, every day is a week, from Sunday all the way to Saturday. In some way, shape, or form, finds its origins in paganism. Now, it's not all from one particular group of people. It is quite a mix-up of both Greek, Roman, and Norse mythology or paganism.
And then the Catholics got a hold of it.
Put their stamp on it, if you will.
I'm sorry, Kevin.
No need to apologize to me.
You Reformed Catholic, you.
We're not going to get into that. So we'll start off with the big one, Sunday. This one's kind of, self-explanatory. It started as a day to honor the sun. Now, many pre-Christian cultures, I feel like...
the sun, the giant ball of burning gas,
yes.
Not the sun.
No. We are talking about the star.
S-U-N, not S-O-N.
Right. Well, later on it becomes S-O-N. This day is meant to honor the sun. Now, many pre-Christian cultures, and even still today, cultures are mostly agricultural, meaning they need the sun to grow their food. Every pagan religion you find, in some way, shape, or form, honors the sun. It's quite literally the end-all, be-all for life on Earth. Without the sun, there is nothing else. Just dark and cold.
That has some, religious undertones, some spiritual undertones to that statement.
Well,
everything's
open to interpretation. So, yes, the Sunday is meant to honor the sun, and when the Catholics got a hold of it, how they always like to help ease the transition from a paganistic society into their reformed Catholic society of order and I'm right and you're wrong, and I'll stop all that right now before I get too far into it.
I was going to go much further. I was going to talk about altar boys, but we'll continue.
Whoa, wait a minute. Took a sharp left there. Anyway, after the Roman Catholics take over, they put their official stamp on it. Okay, we're still going to worship the sun, but as Will alluded to earlier, it's not S-U-N, it's S-O-N.
They forgot to change the spelling.
Yeah, and to help with the transition, we'll keep the spelling this way. So moving on to the next day of the week, and that would be Monday. Whereas Sunday honors the sun, Monday honors the moon.
You don't say.
I just did. Anyway, as just said, many of these cultures were agricultural. While the sun was certainly an important factor in their crops, many operated on a lunar calendar. The different phases of the moon are a lot easier to track than where's the sun at in the sky. So the moon is a central figure, and in many of these early pagan cultures, it was a deity. So Monday honors the moon, which is, like I said, is a lot easier to track the lunar cycle than the solar cycle.
That's because it's easier to look straight at the moon than the sun.
Right. The moon doesn't burn your eyes out of your head. And it also helps control the tide. So, there we go. So moon, Monday, not a hard connection to make. Moving on to Tuesday. Now, I'm sure a lot of you wonder, where does Tuesday come from? What are they celebrating on Tuesday? What's so important? Well, this is where Norse mythology first shows up in our days of the week. Now, everyone knows about Thor and Odin and Loki from, I'm assuming, the Marvel movies. If not, I don't know what you've been doing for the last 10 years.
Right? But I would hope you would know a little bit further back than that.
A little bit.
But a lot of people don't know anything else.
So, Tuesday honors the Norse god Tyr, which is spelled Tyr, but pronounced Tyr. He is a very important figure in Norse mythology and in Norse religion. He is their equivalent of the god of war. But he also holds many other titles, but the big one's war. And if any of you have played the latest God of War, you're kind of searching for Tyr throughout the game. I don't want to give too much away, but he's a big figure in that game. So I'm hoping a lot more people know about him now than before. But Tuesday,
would that be like Mars or Ares?
Yeah, he's kind of the equivalent of that. Now these aren't like direct equivalents. Like there's how the Romans took the Greek gods and just renamed them. These are very original based,
entities under themselves.
Right. So it's just the closest they have to that one. It's you can compare, but it's not apples to apples kind of thing. So moving on to Wednesday, we continue on with our Norse theme. Wednesday was based off of Odin, which in some variations is pronounced Woden, which would be Woden's Day. If you've ever watched the series American Gods, Ian McShane plays Odin, and he meets a guy on Wednesday, and he's like, well, today's Wednesday, so just call me Mr. Wednesday. That's a direct tie back to Odin's Day being Wednesday. Odin, many of you know from the Marvel movies, the top figure in the Norse hierarchy of the gods. He's the All-Father.
He's the Zeus of the Norse mythology.
Now, I really enjoy the Odin character because he has to earn his knowledge. And in order to do that, he gives up an eye. So he has to suffer for his gains. He's not just born this, perfect being. He actually has to earn it. So if you ever wonder why Odin only has one eye, it's because he had to give it up for, he traded it for knowledge. No pain, no gain kind of thing.
So would his other eye be the all-seeing eye?
Possibly. It's the only one he's got.
Right.
But yes, Woden's Day, Wednesday. And you can see that a lot of people don't know about the Wednesday one. And so, but when you get these different, especially in Norse mythology, the names vary a lot, but they all tie back to the same figures. Moving on to Thursday, or otherwise known as Thor's Day, refers to Odin's son, Thor, who made a hammer mighty just by holding him. Played by Chris Hemsworth. Again, if you haven't seen the Marvel movies. Now, they do differ a lot based off the mythology. The deeper they get into the movies.
If you haven't figured it out by now, we're both really big nerds.
Oh, yeah,
that's why we tie a lot of stuff back to Marvel and Star Wars and everything else.
I'm just trying to get you to understand, how this affects you in today.
But the Thor from mythology is very different than Thor from Marvel comics, just to be clear.
Very different. Well, yes, Thor is Odin's son, so the father gets a day, the son gets a day, which moves us on to Friday, or Freya's Day, which would be Odin's wife. She is the goddess of the hunt. She's also the goddess of love. And I've always find it fascinating that the Norse gods hold more titles. It's not as big as a pantheon as the Roman or the Greek gods. They're, I guess, compartmentalized a little bit more. And less names to remember, I suppose. But, you get Freya's Day, or Friday. She's a goddess of love and of hunting. And I've seen the joke meme on Facebook and stuff. If you can't lay 'em, slay 'em kind of thing.
Oh my God.
It's just hilarious to say that people they come up with these brilliant ways of actually you can learn something from it if you read it. It's not just funny; it's also very informative. Which I hope that's what we kind of strive to do. We inform you, but you get a good laugh out of it too.
Even if you're just laughing at us and not necessarily with us.
And you're listening, that's all I care about.
Exactly. If you're this far into this episode, then you're listening.
So yeah, if you're listening, much love. So we come up to Saturday or the last day of the week, depending on, how your week starts. Some people's week starts on Sunday. Personally, I feel like Monday is the first day of the week.
I think that's how everybody feels.
Right.
Even though the calendar says Sunday is the first day of the week.
Even though the calendar says Monday, everybody feels like Monday is the first day of the week. Saturday is based off, we're getting away from the Norse gods, we're going back to the Romans. Based off the Roman god Saturn, who was the equivalent of their god of war. Now, many of the days we have currently, while they are alterations and variations from their original pronunciations and spellings and things like that, and based off of various gods, Saturn was kind of there wasn't really an English equivalent to him. So they just kind of we're just going to leave it the same, fine, 6 out of 7 is not bad kind of thing. But earlier when we were discussing the origins of this, Will proposed a really good question. It's like, why are these days still prevalent now? Like, why are these days, how come they haven't changed?
Like, it's 2020, and we're still calling our days after, like, Norse and Roman gods, and why? How did it live that long instead of, Sunday being like 1,
right.
Monday being like 2?
And it's a complicated question. It's a more complicated answer. With the Pagan Root series, the picture I'm trying to paint for the listeners is these traditions, these aren't happening, overnight or over a couple of years. These are multiple cultures. These are multiple different backgrounds of religion, mythology, different people, long spans of time. And the common theme you see in the Pagan Roots miniseries is these traditions evolve. There's not just, we've been doing it this way for X amount of years. These things are constantly changing because society is always evolving. Things are getting not necessarily better, but different.
Or is it more that larger entities are assimilating smaller cultures into themselves, but keeping their...
Well, you do have a lot of cultural assimilation going on. And some people see it as positive and others as negative.
Because the Catholics absorbed everything.
And then renamed it. To give you a quick rundown of how these days came to be what they are. You start with the Greeks. You have their culture, their religion, their names. Fast forward, the Romans come out, conquer Greece, take many of their aspects of their culture and all right, we're just going to rename it. We're going to keep it, but we're going to rename it. So they take their gods, and instead of Zeus, you have Jupiter. Instead of Venus, or instead of Aphrodite, you have Venus, and so on and so forth. Rome vastly expands over the next several centuries, all the way up into Great Britain, all the way to the Atlantic, all the way down to North Africa, all the way to the Middle East. They just explode in all directions, spreading their culture and influence. And after the Romans fall, here come the Vikings. And for about 300 years or so, they pillage and plunder. And while they're out pillaging and plundering, they start to spread their culture. Either directly or indirectly, they set up bases which eventually grow into cities, which eventually develop large populations with people who are Viking, or at least descendant of Vikings, and the culture takes root. So, like with so many other pagan roots we have, this is one where it's multiple people over long amounts of time, as I said. And these traditions get intertangled. they get altered. Catholics come around and alter them a lot. And people kind of forget why they call things what they do, why they say things, why they do things. And it's just the traditions of, I'm doing it because my parents did it and their parents did it and so on and so forth all the way back. So when it comes time to, really kind of consolidate, get a standardized calendar, you have these days which people are familiar with. It's something, well, we don't have to make up new ones. We can tweak them a little bit to make them fit better. But we have these days that it's not going to be something we have to learn a completely new system. And, as time goes on, people are very lazy when it comes to speaking. So we'll come up with, we always have our nicknames and slang words, so we don't have to say big words or long words.
And if you live in the South,
oh yeah,
you know that as far as English speakers, we're probably the laziest.
Oh yes, we're very slow speakers compared to many others.
And then we have ain't and y'all and stuff like that we just created out of nowhere.
We'll shorten it as much as we can. And the days of the week are really a testament to our ancestors as a whole, because it's something we've kept, I wouldn't say intact, but one we literally use every day.
And no one ever thinks about it. No
one gives it a second thought.
When you approached me about this episode, about the days of the week, I'm like, wait a minute. Like, light bulb turns on, like, yeah, why do we call these days these different things that have no bearing on any real words?
Right, and most people just assume they're just invented words someone came up with one day, but they have this very long, rich, complicated history.
Someone did come up with them one day, a long time ago.
But it's just, even just our days of the week have these long pagan roots.
We can't even get through a day without it being pagan related. That's literal, because if it's every day,
it's every day.
There you go.
Yeah, it's just something to think about. What else in your life has ties to paganism?
Well, I'm pretty sure that me and you are going to try and find more ways and more episode content on the pagan roots to answer that question for these folks.
Absolutely.
But you know it. We don't want you to take our word for anything. We don't want you to think we're experts at all. We're just two dudes in a microphone. So, as always, we want you to form your own opinions, do your own research, trust, but verify.